Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon and welcome to this plenary session 3 on the occasion of the 46th IPA Convention and Exhibition, with the main theme for this year's event, addressing the dual challenge, meeting Indonesia's energy needs while mitigating risks of climate change. Ladies and gentlemen, we would like to extend a warm welcome to distinguished speakers and moderator in this session. This plenary session 3 will be focusing on natural gas as Indonesia's transition fuel, prospects and challenges. This plenary session 3 will commence with a short video.
Gas bumi sebagai energi transisi Indonesia, peluang dan tantangan. Transisi energi menjadi momentum transformasi sektor energi global. Energi berbasis fosil dituntut dapat bertransisi menjadi energi yang lebih rendah emisi untuk menuju net zero. Energi baru dan terbarukan atau EBT yang diharapkan menjadi sumber energi yang rendah emisi masih membutuhkan pengembangan lebih lanjut dalam hal menjaga stabilitas pasokan dan pemerataan distribusi baik secara global maupun nasional. Untuk memenuhi kebutuhan energi saat ini dan beralih kepada energi yang lebih bersih, dibutuhkan sumber energi yang terdistribusi merata serta memiliki emisi yang lebih rendah guna mendukung target NDC. Gas bumi merupakan sumber energi rendah emisi yang dapat berperan sebagai jembatan menuju energi bersih dan berkelanjutan. Sebagai sumber energi, gas bumi di Indonesia memiliki potensi yang besar. Pemerintah Indonesia bahkan telah menetapkan gas bumi sebagai penopang utama kebutuhan energi nasional dalam era transisi energi. Untuk memenuhi peran penting tersebut, seluruh pemangku kepentingan perlu memaksimalkan pengembangan potensi gas bumi yang ada. Namun, sejumlah tantangan dalam pengembangan serta pemanfaatan gas perlu mendapat perhatian dan segera dicarikan solusinya. Saat ini, Indonesia memiliki cadangan gas potensial yang berada di daerah yang minim infrastruktur, terutama di wilayah timur Indonesia dan Laut Dalam. Untuk mengembangkannya, dibutuhkan investasi yang signifikan dalam menyediakan infrastruktur yang menghubungkan gas dari produsen ke konsumen, di mana sebagian besar berada di wilayah barat Indonesia. Kebijakan harga gas untuk industri tertentu sebesar $6 Amerika Serikat per MMBTU juga memberikan tantangan tersendiri, terutama bagi pelaku sektor hulu migas. Hal ini terkait dengan keekonomian lapangan gas yang memiliki tantangan eksplorasi dan eksploitasi yang berbeda-beda, sehingga memerlukan harga gas yang mendukung keekonomian pengembangannya sampai akhirnya dapat berproduksi secara komersial. Selain itu, harga gas domestik yang menarik juga menjadi salah satu faktor penentu pasokan yang berkelanjutan untuk kebutuhan domestik yang terus meningkat. Untuk itu, pemerintah dan para pemangku kepentingan perlu bekerja sama dan merumuskan kebijakan yang inovatif agar dapat mempercepat pengembangan berbagai proyek gas di tanah air. Guna memastikan pengembangan proyek gas nasional berjalan optimal, perlu adanya kolaborasi seluruh pihak untuk mendukung peran gas sebagai energi transisi Indonesia.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, first of all, let us now have a keynote speech by Bapak Joko Siswanto, National Energy Council. The floor is yours.
Yang saya hormati manajemen IPA, panitia, para narasumber, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera bagi kita semua. May we be blessed with peace and prosperity. Good afternoon to you all. It is a great honor for me to be here today to deliver this keynote address for decision. global energy demand will continue to grow as the result of the growth in population and economy. Based on the latest projection from the IEA, oil and natural gas demand are both likely to peak around the end of this current decade, in year 2030. Meanwhile, demand for new and renewable energy will continue to increase rapidly. The net zero emission agenda is accelerating the momentum for energy transition away from fossil-based energy to new and renewable energy. Natural gas is playing an important role as a transition fuel in this process, providing a cleaner energy which is readily available and affordable. Distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, gas provides several advantages as a transitional energy. Compared with oil and coal, gas emits lower CO2 emission compared with oil and coal, 50% lower in the case of coal. Switching from coal and oil to gas has proven to be a quick win for reducing CO2 emission. Presidential Decree number 22, years 2017, and Government Regulation number 79, 2014 regarding national energy policy can foresee the role of natural gas in the energy mix increasing from 21% in 2020 to 22% in 2030 and 24% in 2050. Use of natural gas here in Indonesia has been increasingly steadily in recent years, and domestic demand currently now account for 66% of natural gas production in Indonesia. According to WoodMac Indonesia, gas demand in the electricity sector is projected to continue to grow at a rate of 6.1% per year until 2035. Although the growth is projected to slow after this, in line with the energy transition policy for electricity needs. In 2040, the demand for gas in the electricity sector will reach 3,535 mmSCFD and 2,646 mmSCFD in the non-electric sector such as industry and fertilizer. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, in order to meet this demand, Indonesia needs to maximize the development and use of its potential natural gas reserve. Based on the WoodMac report, Indonesia remaining natural gas reserve reached 35.6 TCF. However, there are challenges to be faced in the development and utilization of this gas in Indonesia, which need to be considered. One challenge is that a significant amount of this potential gas reserve allocated in areas with limited infrastructure, especially in the frontier areas in eastern Indonesia and in deep water areas. Significant investment for the development of gas facilities and infrastructure will be needed to connect the gas reserve to the major centers of demand, most of which are located in Java, Sumatra, and East Kalimantan. Recently, the government has issued a policy on domestic gas pricing. This includes for LNG a price level of $6 per MMBTU delivered at the buyer's plant gate for certain industrial sector buyers. And for electricity buyer, based on ministerial decision number 118, 2021 and ministerial decision number 134, 2021. This policy can easily be applied to the MO gas and to the government's split take or portion under the PSG contract. As regards the contractor split, the intent is that this price cap will only affect the government portion. This determination of gas prices has been perceived as the reference price for the domestic gas market, and therefore will set the upper limit for market prices even for new development. This creates a challenge, as its field will have its own specific technical needs when being commercially developed. As a result, its field is likely to need achieve different break-even prices in order to make development of the field commercially viable. This will include being able to cover the cost is likely to incur in managing CO2 emission so that they conform with the net zero emission target requirement they are committed. With the upward trend in global energy prices, a balance is also needed between fulfilling domestic gas need fulfillment and complying with export policy requirement in order to encourage investment and be fair to all stakeholders. Given these potential challenges, the government and relevant stakeholders need to work together and formulate innovative solutions and policies. This is necessary to support and accelerate the development of various gas projects in Indonesia to ensure that gas development can optimally fulfill its role as a provider of energy during the transition period to achieve the net zero emission target. For your information, in order to reduce emission and to accelerate the shift to green energy, PLN has launched a de-dieselization program by converting around 5,200 diesel power plant to gas combined cycle with new and renewable energy. This program can save 67,000 kiloliters of fuel per year and 0.0 million tons of CO2 reduction. Furthermore, since 2009, a significant element of development of gas infrastructure development has been funded by the state budget, such as city gas infrastructure, the transmission of gas through pipeline from Cirebon Semarang, around 255 kilometers, which also has been funded by the state budget, around 3 trillion rupiah, and also the construction of gas station. This year, Indonesia will be host country for the G20 meeting chaired by the Indonesian President. One of the statements in Energy Transition Working Group in Bali, and the item of the G20 agenda is to produce a Bali Compact, common principle in accelerating clean energy transition. One of the statements is financing, investment, and technology transition for energy transition. Even somehow, any statement before, no one financial institution to financing for fossil development, especially for coal, but based on the Bali Compact, the 20 countries already agreed and support to financing energy transition. We believe some financial institutions will consider financing projects for transition energy, especially for the flowing natural gas field and gas infrastructure for energy transition. And also, I hope together among us, not only from the state budget, but also from private companies, state-owned companies, and foreign investors, so together they are able to develop gas field and infrastructure in Indonesia. Allow me, before I close my keynote, I would like to make pantun ya, seperti biasanya sekarang sudah musim. Kalau ada sumur di ladang, boleh kita menumpang mandi, melihat beruang di pohon padi. Kalau ada umur kita panjang, tahun depan kita ketemu lagi, meskipun kurang uang, transisi energi harus terjadi. Terima kasih. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Kami mohon Bapak Djoko Siswanto untuk berkenan tetap berada di panggung untuk menerima cenderamata berikut ini. Ladies and gentlemen, we will now have a presentation of memento as our token of appreciation to our keynote speaker, Bapak Djoko Siswanto. Mr. Kevin Moore, IPA Board, will present the memento to Bapak Djoko Siswanto, National Energy Council. A round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. Kita kasih tepuk tangan. Kami ucapkan terima kasih Bapak Joko Siswanto. Kami silakan untuk kembali ke tempat. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, we kindly remind you again about the Q&A. Please scan the QR code. We have a QR code on the screen. Please scan the QR code with your gadget and click question box. You are now ready to type your questions. So, ladies and gentlemen, our session moderator, Mr. Andrew Harwood, Director of Upstream Corporate Research, Asia Pacific, Wood Mackenzie. Andrew Harwood is responsible for Wood Mackenzie's corporate coverage in Asia Pacific, providing in-depth analysis of the leading Asia-headquartered national and international oil companies. In addition to developing research content, providing insight and analysis, Andrew Harwood advises clients on corporate strategy and supports business development with key regional and global accounts. Mr. Andrew Harwood, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests. It gives me great pleasure to be your moderator for this session, the third plenary session of the 2022 IPA CONVEX. The title of this session is Natural Gas as Indonesia's Transition Fuel, Prospects and Challenges. And I think Pak Joko Siswanto has given us a great summary and overview of the outlook for not only Indonesia's gas demand, but also the potential that it has to meet that demand. Now, this session will involve each of our distinguished guests, who I'll soon welcome to the stage, making some opening remarks to provide their take on how the development of Indonesia's natural gas resources influence their businesses and the opportunities and challenges that they see in the outlook. But before we dive into the discussion, I'd like to provide a little bit of context for the topics we will try to cover during the session. We've already had almost 2 days of discussion at this year's conference, with much mention of decarbonisation, the energy transition, and the competitive environment for attracting new investment to Indonesia. Now, Wood Mackenzie and myself, we are very much in the business of providing data and numbers. I'm very much a numbers person as well, and so I'd like to give you just 3 key numbers that hopefully you can take away with you from this session that will help frame the following discussion. So firstly, $30 per MMBTU. That's the price that spot LNG prices have averaged over the first half of this year. Conflict in Europe has caused turmoil in global energy markets. International gas prices are likely to remain volatile until at least 2026, when new LNG supply enters the market. And these higher and more volatile prices will cause affordability issues for those that cannot rely on their own domestic sources of natural gas. The second number I'd like to give you is 400. That is the percentage increase in Indonesia's gas demand out until 2050. And again, Pak Joko Sis has already given us an overview of that gas demand outlook. Indonesia currently produces around 6.5 BCF a day. It has a 12 BCF a day target by 2030. Much of current production comes from just 4 key developments: Tangguh, Corridor, offshore Mahakam, and the Jangkrik and Merakes development in the Kutai Basin. Now, these are pretty impressive numbers, but it's still a long way short of that proposed 12 BCF a day target by 2030, and it's a long way short of that 2050 gas demand number that Indonesia has. So it really highlights the challenge that Indonesia faces in ensuring sufficient supply. Now, the last number I'd like to give you, and again, I think we've seen this a number of times today already, is 50%. That is how much cleaner in terms of emissions gas is when compared with burning coal. And that's important because, when we consider Indonesia's and indeed the world's plans to decarbonize, to reduce emissions, and to limit global warming to less than 1.5 degrees, then it's certainly ours, as Wood Mackenzie's perspective, that natural gas can be that transition fuel that will help us move towards a cleaner and lower emission future. So 30, 400, and 50. Those are the numbers I'd like you to try and take away with you today. And these numbers really speak to the heart of the energy trilemma that we hear so much about today. Decarbonization, security of supply, and affordability. I'm looking forward to really discussing with the panelists today how Indonesia can address these challenges. So now I'd like to welcome the first speaker to the stage, Pak Benny Lubiantara from SKK Migas. Pak Benny has worked in various international oil and gas companies, has extensive oil and gas industry knowledge. He started his career as a petroleum engineer at Maxis, which is now CNOOC. He moved to Unocal, now Chevron, in 2000, worked for international organizations, government institutions. He's currently working for SKK Migas as deputy for planning for SK Migas. I'll invite my next panelist to the stage now. If we could have Pak Rahmat Asyari come to the stage, or Pak Nando, as I believe he's known to his friends. And we're all friends here, I hope. Pak Nando is EVP for gas and liquid fuel procurement at PLM Persero. He has his Bachelor of Environmental Engineering from Institute Technology Bandung and a Master of Management from the University of Indonesia. He joined PT PLN Persero 8 months ago and began his career originally with SKK Migas in 2003. Next up to the stage, I'd like to ask Pak Jamsaton Nababan from Pupuk, Indonesia. Pak Jamsaton is Portfolio and Business Development Director at Pupuk, Indonesia. He graduated from North Sumatra University, majoring in mechanical engineering. Jamsaton has made national and international improvements and achievements throughout his career in the oil and gas industry with Pertamina Group for over 30 years. Next up to the stage, Mr. Mark Fitzgerald, Vice President of International Assets at Petronas Upstream. Mark Fitzgerald was appointed as Vice President of International Assets Upstream Business in April 2022 and is also currently the CFO of Petronas International Corporation. He holds a degree in chemical engineering with distinction from the University of Alberta and a master's in business administration from the Royal Roads University in Victoria, Canada. Prior to his current appointment, Mark held the role of the President and Chief Executive Officer of Petronas Energy Canada, a role he held since November 2017. In a career spanning over 32 years, Mark has worked for major energy companies across North America and has participated in the startup and growth of a new energy company in Canada. And last but definitely not least, in perhaps his last major engagement in Indonesia, so please give him a warm welcome, please, everyone. Pak Diego Portuguese from ENI. Diego was appointed Managing Director of ENI Indonesia, the highest position in the subsidiary since July 2019. With a background as a chemical engineer, he's held several positions throughout his career in ENI, and he is soon to be departing these shores and moving to the Middle East. So after this presentation, we'll wish him well. Okay, now to kick us off, what we're going to do is we're going to ask the panelists each to make some opening remarks And then we'll move into the discussion session. We're going to try and keep it light on the presenting and realize this is perhaps the longest session in the conference, and we're straight after lunch, so we want to keep the energy levels up. So over to you, Pak Benny, to kick us off and get those juices flowing.
Thank you, Andrew. Greeting to other panelists, Diego, Mark, Pak Jamsaton, and also Pak Nandu. Ladies and gentlemen, colleagues, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon. First of all, please allow me to deliver my short presentation. I have only 2 slides, hopefully less than 10 minutes. Okay, let's start with the first slide. Okay, as you may know, I think most of you know, SK Chemigas has launched 1 million barrel oil per day and 12 BCF per day in 2030. So today, of course, since our topic about gas, I will not discuss about 1 million barrel oil per day. We'll discuss about 12 BCF per day. And then it is very relevant because of 2 reasons. First, we know that, since yesterday, I think in almost many events and forums, people talk about the important role of the gas, natural gas, during the energy transition era. And then the second one, which is important in the context of Indonesia, is that, Indonesia has a potentiality of gas prone. Meaning that I quote a comment from my colleague, geologist actually, because I'm not a geologist. Gas prone basically means that, source that make it more likely to generate gas than oil, especially in the eastern part of Indonesia. So that, 2 issues, the important role of natural gas in the future, and then the potentiality of having a source of gas in Indonesia will match the, issue in the future. So let me begin with the LTP, long-term plan for the gas. You can see from the left slide, the lower one. We have 3 layers there. The bottom one basically the base production, which is from existing production. The second one, R2P, resource to production. You all know this is from this category. This layer came from the POD that have been approved, or some undeveloped discovery that are going to be ready to be developed very soon. And then the third one, the top layers, is exploration. We updated this profile regularly, once a year, but maybe twice a year sometimes, depend on the relevant information that we have obtained. The trigger normally from the information like the exploration, as we all know, last year we discovered some oil and gas discovery, and this year as well, as you remember, Timpan in Andaman from Harbor Oil discovered the oil and the gas and condensate, and then also some Pertamina EP has some discovery as well in Sumatra and also in Papua, and also CONVEX and also Petronas. So that's information about the discovery. Will update our profile on this slide. Some other trigger that we need to update is, we understand that some project will be delayed. About Masela, about IDD. In that case, we have to shift the on-stream schedule, for example. In the POD, for example, Masela was expected to be on stream 2027. Now, of course, based on today's information, 2027 is no longer valid. So we'll shift, say, for 2 years, for example, the on-stream schedule, and also IDD as well. So we updated regularly this profile. So, and at the same time, for your information, we incorporate also the unconventional oil and gas source, because initially we didn't incorporate this at the time because the regulation is not really clear. But since last year, the government issued the new regulation to make the unconventional business become easier. And then we thought that it is a good time to incorporate the unconventional oil and gas into the profile as well. This is part of the exploration here, or the layer of the exploration. So of course, the most uncertainty from this profile came from the top layers. You know, the higher the layer, the higher the uncertainty. We all know the exploration become the higher, but in order to still conservative, for the exploration actually we apply very significant risk, you know, in order to become very conservative. From P50, for example, recoverable reserve, for prospect and lead, we discount up to 90% actually. And for prospect, we discount to 60 or 70%. In order to have that profile still conservative. We don't want to have the exaggerating figure on this profile. So these three layers, and then on the next figure, I transfer from the three layers, the categories, into the, you know, since we are talking about the supply demand in Indonesia, into the 6 region. So our colleagues from marketing and monetization are familiar with this 6 region. The division of the 6 region, starting from the region 1, which is covered the Aceh and North Sumatra, region 2 covering central Sumatra, and also southern Sumatra, Riau Island Province, and also West Java. And then region 3 and 4 covering central and west east Java. And then region 5 Kalimantan, and region 6 Sulawesi, Maluku, and Papua. This is based on this LTP for gas. We transform to the region based on the region. As mentioned, also you can see also from the opening video, you know, most of the potential resource in the future came from the eastern area. It is more than 50% actually will came from the region 6 area in terms of the supply in the future. So basically, my message here is that, you know, in terms of the LTP, the issue is not about the availability, because we believe, since we use already the conservative approach, the resource are there. We believe the resource in subsurface. We don't worry about that. The question is about deliverability, not the availability. The deliverability means, you know, we have to produce this resource economically. Meaning the investor, they need the minimum attractive rate of return to produce. But the concern is, no, maybe the minimum attractive rate of return change than what happened before. You know, for example, in the past, investor, they only need X%, but now, since, you know, the transition, the competition of the capital, etc., the X% is no longer valid. They need a higher minimum attractive rate of return, for example. At the same time, the second challenge is about, you know, the execution, because once the project is delayed, for example, like Marcella and IDD, of course, you know, the layer changing, you know, we are afraid if, you know, the on-stream schedule change, most of the schedule change, and then of course the 12 BCF per day will not be achieved in 2030. So in order to achieve, you know, 12 BCF per day in 2030, we need to, two issues need to be solved. First, the economic, and then the second, the execution of the project need to be in time. Okay, next slide, which is my last slide. Okay, this is, you know, the current situation or the division of the region. You can see from region 1 to region 6. The red colors mean the current situation, you know, which is deficit for region 1 and region 2, but surplus for region 4 and region 3, so in 5, and of course surplus in region 6. So in terms of the contributor from the supply side, for example, for region 1, we expect to have additional supply from Andaman later, already incorporated in the slide, you know, when we put the Region 1, the contribution of Andaman is already there. So we hope that it is very important for Region 1 to have Andaman later. So we know we have a good result from the Timpan 1, Harbor Oil. Hopefully other well discovery or exploration well in Andaman will have a good result as well. So the regional 2, as we know, the contribution mostly from the corridor, Jabung, Jambi Merang, and also there will be a contribution from Jindi, and also Duyung from Conrad will also contribute. The POD about finished. You know, we are discussed the revision of the POD Duyung with Conrad, and also later we will discuss about the Anambas POD with CONVEX. And also in the area of Java, West Java, we have ONWG contributor and also EP, Pertamina EP Asset 3. For regional 3 and 4, we know Jambaran Tiung Biru on stream, Madura Strait, WMO, and also Kangean as the main contributor. The homework for region 5 actually, because you know we have East of Pinggan, of course, and also Muara Bakau, NE, and PHI, Sanga-Sanga, Mahakam, and also East Kalimantan. And you know, we expect to have IDD very soon. So the main homework for Region 5 basically to keep train Bontang running. How to keep train Bontang running for the Region 5. And then on Region 6, this is the challenge. We have the existing we have from BP, Brau, and also Senoro Toili. But the homework is about the Kasuri Genting, you know, the revision of PD is ongoing. So hopefully will be, soon resolved, and then will be on stream soon. And of course, everybody know the Masela. We hope that we will discuss very soon about the revision of POD incorporating the CCS UCS scope this year, and then hopefully it will be smoothly, because it's very important to have Masala. It's one of the biggest reserve that we had discovered last decade. I think that's it. The challenge, mainly I mentioned already in the video and on the first day of the conference as well. So you know, the main challenge is of course because almost 60 to 70% of the potential resource are located in the eastern part of Indonesia. So the issue is about the connectivity, how to connect between the surplus area and then the deficit area. So infrastructure connectivity is the key. And also in terms of the technology, we expect to have more economic technology, because as we are aware that we have also many small gas fields stranded in the area, because the small field we need in order to make the project economic. For this, small volume of gas field, we may need also other attractive technology, maybe like a mini LNG or modular LNG that can bring from field to other field in order to make become economic. With that, Andrew, I think I conclude my short presentation. I'm happy to have a question and answer session later. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Pak Benny. Maybe before we move on to the next speaker, I might just ask one question. Obviously, a lot of improvements have been made around Indonesia's exploration and fiscal offering, and time will tell how attractive the industry sees that. And obviously that will take time before some of those exploration blocks can be sort of turned into potential resource and potential production. But in the near term, obviously there's a focus on some of those undeveloped resources that we already have. Where are the sort of priority areas that you think SKK Migas, ESDM, other ministries, where are the sort of priority areas that you think can be focused on to ensure that those developments can be sort of accelerated or brought on stream on time?
Thank you, Andrew. I think in terms of the policy that have been issued recently in order to improve the attractiveness, we know that there is a regulation, I think back in 2021, the flexibility that the contractor or investor can choose whether they prefer to have a gross split or cost recovery, which we understand in the past that there was no choice. Everyone should choose the gross split, but now there is a flexibility. And then the second one, late last year, the minister also issues the regulation regarding the guidance for obtaining the incentive. So that also applied already to some project like PHC, Mahakam, PHSS, and also Sanga-Sanga, and also East Kalimantan, Medco in Natuna. They also get already the additional incentive using that guideline. Currently, there are many projects ongoing discussion with SKK Migas in order to to receive that incentive, because using the current term and condition, the project simply uneconomic. So we can use that regulation, the minister regulation. And then thirdly, for the new blocks, actually the government already issued relatively, in my opinion, relatively much more attractive than before. This is the one that we offer, I think, several months ago. Block Agung in offshore Bali, which in terms of the attractiveness is much better. Like split up to 50%, which is never happened before, and also the FTP is quite small now compared to the one in the past. But yes, of course, the ongoing improvement need to be done, because as you mentioned in the opening, that other country at the same time they also issues the new incentive. They also improve the attractiveness of their fiscal term. So we cannot simply improve. We need to to have radical, we like to use the radical improvement. Otherwise, the change is not significant, Pak Andrew. I think that's the one that we are going to do now.
Thanks, Pak. Maybe we can discuss later on, whether it's within SKK Migas's power on its own to be able to make some of these changes, or if it needs more support from some of the other sort of government bodies and government agencies. So we can discuss that later, I think. Okay, moving on next to Pak Nando from PLM. I'd like to take the podium, please.
Thank you, Andrew. Distinguished speakers, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the President Director of PLN, I would like to deliver the presentations, the role of the natural gas in PLN's energy transition roadmap.
Do we have?
Gitu. Iya, kalau mau tahu file name-nya apa gitu. Oh, tadi udah di deliver ke ininya ya. Oke.
I think there may be a little bit of mix up here with the slides. Pak Nando, would you like to continue without the slides?
Yeah, okay, I will continue without slides. So
I can act out the charts if you like. If
yeah.
Give it the direction.
So yeah, I would like to give you a statements of PLN's management on the commitment to fully support the government's decarbonization program to provide a better living space for future generations. And PLN start its first step to realize the net zero emission roadmap by shifting away from high carbon power generations. So for short terms, we have some programs. One of the programs is gas expansions. So currently the peak load on Java, which is the most densely populated island, has reached slightly under 30 gigawatts. If we assume the electricity growth is around 5%, we must provide a generation capacity of around 1.5 gigawatt per year. So we understand right now that we are still facing several challenges to develop a large-scale renewables power plant, especially in Java. Therefore, the development and utilization of the gas power plants is one of the options to generate electricity with a lower carbon emissions to meet the growing demand. In the western part of Indonesia, as we understand, there is existing gas infrastructures that have been built comprehensively, both LNG infrastructure and also gas pipelines, especially on the mainland, like in Java and Sumatra. In addition to that, we are going to develop a new gas infrastructures, especially in the distribution. Especially to distribute LNG in eastern part of Indonesia in order to reduce the utilization of the liquid fuel. Therefore, the development of the gas infrastructure will encourage the utilization of gas to reduce high carbon emissions to a lower level. Indonesian natural gas remaining reserve are still abundant, so we believe it, and this is a competitive advantage for Indonesia in order to generate electricity without depending on importation of energy supply. It also to ensure the sustainability and reliability of the electricity generation, as well as to support exploration and production activities in upstream gas, since PLN is the one of the major domestic gas buyers. The government of Indonesia has set a certain domestic gas price, as we know, around $6 US dollar per MMBTU, to support the affordability of the electricity tariff, which we can hope can attract more investors to Indonesia. The next point is it is very rarely the challenges of the utilization gas for the power plants that we are facing now. It is very rarely to have a gas supply more than 20 years at the moment, as Pak Benny explains. Now this discovery of the gas reserve still not as high as previously. And it makes difficulties on our side in PLN to guarantee a long reliability and continuation of the gas supply to support of our gas power generation operation. And the capacity of the gas power plants varies from small to large, and it spread throughout the Indonesia. But as we know, the gas reserve usually located in a remote area, so so we have to develop gas infrastructures and to determine the optimum logistic scheme in order to get the optimum infrastructure fee. And my last point is to obtain optimal price. PLN tend to have a long-term commitment with the gas providers as much as we can, let's say more than 10 years. Meanwhile, the projection of the gas demand is only carried out for the next 10 years. So therefore, in our side, we would like to have more flexibility clause in our gas supply contracts. I think this is the points of my presentations. So I apologize, there is technical problems that the organizing committee received my slides not in a proper time. So this is conclude my presentation, and thank you for your kind attention.
Thanks very much, Pak Nando, and apologies for the technical hitch there. Thanks for your key points there. One question before we move on. You know, in the latest sort of outlook or energy plan for Indonesia, the Indonesia's transition really centres on reducing the use of coal and other fossil fuels and the increased utilisation of renewables as a source of power generation. My question would be, you know, how does PLN plan to develop and finance the infrastructure that will be required for that sort of increased role of renewables going forward?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so I think now we are have several options here to collaborate with our partner as well as we have some backups from financial institutions. So you are right that in order to increase the gas utilization, especially on the eastern part of Indonesia, we will develop LNG infrastructures to distribute to replace the liquid fuel consumptions. So as we know, in the eastern part of Indonesia, the base load still utilizing the liquid fuel. So that's why, as Pak Benny also mentioned, this is very important to develop gas infrastructure that connect the gas source and the demand. So to answer your question in short, we have several options, starting collaboration with our partner and also getting some support from the financial institution. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Okay, moving on next, I'm going to ask Pak Jamsaton to take to the podium and give us his perspective of Indonesia's natural gas sector.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to convey my appreciation for this opportunity to participate in this prestigious event. It is an honor for both myself and also Pupuk Indonesia Group. In this opportunity, I would like to share our strategy in securing gas supply for our existing plant and future project. As we all know, natural gas reserve and production in Indonesia is limited and the demand is always increasing, especially during the overall industry transition to cleaner energy source such as gas. Therefore, it is crucial for Pupuk Indonesia to secure our gas supply. In addition, we will also share our strategy and readiness to energy transition, with which our aim is to significantly reduce the carbon emission and fight global warming. Next slide, please. Pupuk Indonesia is a holding company, 100% owned by government of Indonesia. We have 10 subsidiaries consisting of 5 fertilizer companies and 5 various business range from APC, trading, logistic, and also utility provider. So we have 5 fertilizer. Next slide. In this slide, we can see that Pupuk Indonesia fertilizer plant are located throughout Indonesia from Aceh, South Sumatra, East Kalimantan, East Java, and Iskandar Muda, Aceh. Total fertilizer production in Pupuk Indonesia Group is almost 13.9 million ton per year, consisting of 9.3 million ton per year of urea, 3.3 million ton per year of NPK, and 1.3 million ton per year of other fertilizer. PT Pupuk Kalimantan Timur is our biggest urea producer with production of 3.5 million per year, and Petrokimia Gresik is our biggest NPK producer with production of 2.7 million ton per year. Next. Pupuk Indonesia also have 3 future projects that will require increasing gas demand from 830 million standard cubic feet in 2020 to 1.2 billion standard cubic feet per day in 2028. The first project is Pusri 3B. It's planning to operate in 2025 with gas demand 71 billion standard cubic feet per day. The production ammonia and urea, the product. The second project is West Papua project, expected operate in 2027, and gas demand around 221 million standard cubic feet per day. The product ammonia, urea, and also methanol for West Papua project. And the third project is Masela, expected to operate in 2028, and gas demand around 150 billion standard cubic feet per day. We produce ammonia and methanol. Next slide. As you know, the Pupuk Indonesia also anticipate the future business to produce the clean energy. Ammonia is one energy for the future because ammonia mostly clean and environmentally environment. As the main producer of ammonia in Indonesia, Pupuk Indonesia holds a strong position to support this movement for cleaner energy transition and decarbonization. It is worth noting that the main route to produce ammonia involves natural gas, steam, reforming, which also produce and emit CO2. Today, technologies are readily available to capture and store CO2, which is emitted when ammonia is being produced. When ammonia production is combined with carbon capture facilities, we would have we call blue ammonia. This blue ammonia is essential to ensure our contribution to reduce CO2 emission and fight global warming. In addition to blue ammonia, we are also pursuing green ammonia project in which ammonia is being produced by synthesizing hydrogen from water electrolysis and nitrogen from air separation unit. So right now we have two projects for future to clean energy, blue ammonia and also the green ammonia. Next slide. For our decarbonization initiative, Pupuk Indonesia has signed several MOU with potential partners to produce green ammonia, blue ammonia, and also the green energy. In Aceh, Pupuk Indonesia has signed MOU with Pertamina and PLN to support the development of green industry cluster. In addition, Pupuk Indonesia has also signed MOU with Toyo for green ammonia production development in Pupuk Iskandar Muda 2, and with Mitsui for blue ammonia production development in future for Pupuk Iskandar Muda 3. Special for green ammonia, we collaborate with the Toyo, the study, the FIT study, also supported by MITI from Japan. The development of blue ammonia project is also planned in Masela, in which Pupuk Indonesia is collaboration with Impex. Pupuk Indonesia has also signed an MOU in the study for environmentally friendly hydrogen production and ammonia value chain development with Pertamina and Mitsubishi Chemicals. Next. In this slide, we have Pupuk Indonesia decarbonization roadmap. Pupuk Indonesia target is to have 5 million ton CO2 equivalent reduction by 2050. This CO2 reduction target is to be achieved through various efforts such as the implementation of green energy technology and pushing forward energy efficiency in by 2024. To further reduce CO2 emission, we are preparing two soda ash projects to convert CO2 into added value product instead of being emitted to the environment. Right now, the two projects still going. We have the target 2024. The soda ash is already operate. We also have planned to revamp and replace our old plant by 2025. Such additional effort will further increase energy efficiency and reduce CO2 emission. Going further into the future, Pupuk Indonesia plans to maximize green ammonia production and utilize such product in boiler confiring between 2026 and 2030. We also intend to start blue ammonia production in 2030 and build stand-alone green ammonia plant in 2041 until 2050. Next. So this is the summary for my presentation. Number one, Pupuk Indonesia plays a major role in Indonesia gas monetization, with gas utilization approximately up to 1.2 billion standard cubic feet per day in 2028. Pupuk Indonesia Development Plan in West Papua, Masela, as way to secure future gas supply, will also stimulate economic development in the eastern part of Indonesia. Pupuk Indonesia is committed to support the green industry future by pursuing projects in producing green and blue ammonia as alternative energy currents. Thank you. Thank you, Andrew.
Thanks very much. Again, if I could maybe ask one question before we move on. You know, the Pupuk Indonesia business is obviously directly linked to the secure, reliable and affordable supply of natural gas. But you're also helping to really facilitate that economic development of Indonesia, particularly in eastern Indonesia. Now, given your own decarbonisation plans, how do you see that impacting your sort of future, I guess, demand for natural gas? Do we see continued upside in that outlook, or how do those decarbonisation plans impact your future gas needs?
Thank you, Andrew. Blue ammonia and green ammonia for the future, this is our business for future, because the demand for the clean ammonia is still increase year by year. Right now, we export the gray ammonia to Korea and also Japan to replace the coal firing in the power plant. So we very seriously to develop the green and blue ammonia. For the blue ammonia, we cannot develop stand-alone. We must collaborate with the upstream, Pak Beni, because around Indonesia is so many reservoirs, mature reservoirs, so we want to just collaborate to inject our CO2 to subsurface. And the third stage, we also seriously to develop the green ammonia. This is the electrolysis method from water to take the H2 and also oxygen from separation unit from air. We know this is very costly to develop, but also we have hopefully the green ammonia and also blue. This is our energy for the future. So why Pupuk Indonesia right now start to develop the green and also the blue ammonia. Thank you, Andrew.
Yeah, so you're really, it emphasizes how close you need to collaborate with not only the upstream producers of gas that are providing you with your feedstock, but also you're going to be relying on their capabilities to help with carbon capture. So it points towards much closer and stronger collaboration going forward between yourselves and the upstream sector. So I think that's positive, and we've heard a lot about collaboration so far through this conference. Thanks very much. Moving on now, Mark, if you'd like to give us your take as an international investor in Indonesia.
Great, thank you, Andrew. Selamat siang, distinguished colleagues on the panel, welcome guests, and all of those that are online joining us today. I'm very, very pleased to be here today to represent Petronas and talk a little bit about natural gas, the role in Indonesia, and as well the role of natural gas around the world. I think, as we know, Petronas is very, very active in the global space, both in our home country of Malaysia, very active in Indonesia, and also operate in most of the large gas basins around the globe. In addition, we are amongst the top 5 suppliers of LNG, have a very active position in the renewable space around the globe, and also actively pursuing hydrogen and other alternative sources of fuel for the future. Today, though, of course, I want to talk about natural gas. And when we think of natural gas as a transition fuel, I want to plant the seed in terms of how we think about it. Transition doesn't mean natural gas disappears. Transition doesn't necessarily mean that we're moving to entirely new fuels. Transition means ensuring that, in our opinion, natural gas remains part of a low-carbon future, and that it is part of the solution around the globe. And I think from our perspective, and I would suggest you'll hear that theme today, that's a view that's shared by many. Natural gas really has 2 areas of focus for us within the company. One is the innovation and technology and the ability to extract natural gas at a lower and lower cost. In doing so, you increase margins, increase profitability, and allow further investment to decarbonize that natural gas stream. A great example one that we're very, very proud of is being the first to develop the floating LNG facility. Allows us access to smaller resource discoveries, allows us to further increase the supply and the sources of natural gas, and both from a domestic source of supply, but also from an international movement of that natural gas. The second is the focus on decarbonization. We have heard over the last day and a half here at this conference the importance of CCS, the importance of electrification, and the opportunity to decarbonize existing fossil fuel streams. And I believe, as we look around Southeast Asia, the resiliency and the innovation and the opportunities to capture those technology advancements and drive forward, both in terms of reducing costs of supply, but also the decarbonization of that supply, are very critical factors for us go forward. We're very proud in Malaysia that we continue to drive forward as a leading entity in carbon capture and sequestration in that basin. Any projects that go forward must ensure that they contribute in a meaningful way to the decarbonization efforts around the globe. So as I move forward and as we continue to have the conversation here on the panel, the theme that I want to leave each and every one of us with is natural gas is a transition fuel, but it is not a fuel that ultimately needs to disappear. It's a fuel that will continue to be part of the solution. It's a fuel that has shown its ability over the last decades to significantly reduce the efficiency or the energy efficiency and the emissions intensity associated with it. And the focus is apply the innovation, apply technology, reduce the cost of supply around the world, transfer that through LNG to big demand basins, and then through the carbon capture sequestration work, the evolution of hydropower, the source of renewable power that we're seeing around the globe, drive those emissions intensities even lower and ensure that there is a long and sustainable future for natural gas. As it relates to our conversation here today, I think that's an overwhelming opportunity for Indonesia as we continue to see the advancement in the development of the resources, and I think the world-scale resources that exist in Indonesia, the development of the infrastructure and the supporting systems to bring that natural gas to the major demand centers, both in country and ultimately, I expect, exported. There's the opportunity to do that in conjunction with the infrastructure and the innovation and the investment to ensure through CCS, electrification, solar, and other opportunities to advance the renewable space that we will see amongst the lowest intensity natural gas in the future, I expect, in Indonesia. Thank you for that. I look forward to the questions, Andrew. Hopefully they're all easy, and we'll talk soon. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Mark. I can't necessarily promise that they'll be easy, but I'm certainly gonna start with a question for you here. Obviously, as you mentioned, Petronas, one of the leading suppliers of LNG globally. What's happening in Europe has kind of upturned certainly the gas markets and commodity markets in general. How does that impact how Petronas, first of all, views the outlook for natural gas, but also how does it impact how you view the opportunity set in Indonesia?
Yeah, I think it's a really important question, Andrew, and certainly I think we would acknowledge one that's particularly relevant today. Over the past 5 years, we've seen a movement from a narrative very, very focused on, frankly, the elimination of fossil fuels and the transition to renewables to, okay, let's really focus on technology and innovation and investment to ensure that the emission intensity associated with that let's use natural gas, with natural gas has declined, to over the past 12 months, a conversation that's very much emerged around energy security. And not only energy security from a national interest, but also from a global perspective. It's clear to see that as we reach pain points around the globe where energy costs become very high, people are fighting to fuel their homes, or warm their homes, fuel their vehicles, the narrative very quickly switches to, I need cheap energy, or we need to find sources of cheap energy, or we need to reduce the cost of energy. From a Petronas perspective, the most important thing that we can do is stay the course. We continue to focus on the development of our natural gas resources around the globe in a very cost-efficient manner, but also in a manner that ensures long-term that we will meet not only our net zero 2050 targets, but that we can transition towards that efficiency, that energy intensity, or that energy efficiency and the emissions intensity that we believe are going to be key aspects of our portfolio long-term. So while we see the globe very quickly shift, as I said, towards energy security, increasing the production of natural gas and oil to supply that energy security and the demand around the globe, it's very critical that as an industry we don't lose our focus, we maintain the status quo, because eventually it's going to come back where the ESG component is very, very much in focus again. So no matter what, it's a long-term vision, and I think that's the best way I could characterize that. Thank you, Andrew.
Yeah, so gas is and will continue to be a key part of the Petronas strategy going forward, and you'll continue to look for opportunities to produce and develop in this part of the world, which is good news, I think, for everybody in this room.
No, exactly. Thank you.
Okay, moving on to my colleague on the end here. Back Diego, please give us your perspectives on the natural gas sector in Indonesia.
Thank you, Andrew, and thanks to the IPA for the opportunity to speak on behalf of the association today. I'm unlucky to be the last one here. I'm going to repeat many of the concepts that were already described by our colleagues, Pabeni, Mark, in particular regarding the importance of the gas into the Indonesian arena, and especially in the transition development and path. Gas in Indonesia has been widely used for electricity, fertilizers, as we saw, and industry sectors, and has a strategic role in supporting the energy security of the country. As we discussed before, the numbers was also mentioned by Pabeni before, 2021 number, utilization was 6.6 BCF day. And that constitutes 64% of the utilization of this gas has been gone into the domestic market. The energy mix in 2021 is less than 20% filled by natural gas. But if we look at the long-term view, by 2050, the projection says that natural gas will cover a quarter of the overall energy mix. That means that gas is needed. Not only now, it will be needed even more in the future, because this increase of 4% comes with a huge increase in the overall number. So not only increases in percentage, but increase in absolute value. Now, since the 70s, when the first gas projects were developed, the key word was infrastructure. So infrastructure now is crucial to connect the gas production to the demand center. We saw that in the presentations, in the keynote speech, and also was mentioned by the colleagues here, to connecting to the power plants, to the fertilizer plants. So right now, it is a key position. They will be even more important in the future to further support the demand. So while the country is getting up to a lower emission energy system, while waiting for the full-scale development of renewables, natural gas will certainly play a significant role going forward. Why? Because as we mentioned, the numbers were the ones that we already touched base. Andrew, you mentioned 50% lower emission compared with coal. We can also compare 25–30% lower than oil. So these are the key numbers that makes natural gas a powerful source for the transition phase. It's already compatible with the infrastructures that we have. And as Pabeni mentioned and described extensively in his contribution, we have a lot of potential in the country. So there is the need for gas in the future in the transition arena. How we get there? Now, how we get there, it's important. As Pabeni mentioned, the 12 BCF a day gas production target by 2030, it's very significant, it's very challenging in front of us, and there are lots of activities ongoing at the moment to arrive there. In order for the natural gas to act as a transitional fuel and contribute to the need for security of supply, there are some areas that all the stakeholders that have been talking in these days are focusing on and will be focusing on in the future. One is the domestic gas price policy, which has to support the commercial development of the gas projects and attract significant investments. The existing price policies impose a challenge because each field will have its own specific technical requirements to be commercially developed. Therefore, there will be a need for different price levels to support the economics, also considering the element regarding the cost associated with the additional cost to manage the CO2 emissions there. IPA in general supports the government intent to develop local industry, as we have been experiencing the last few years. However, such intent should be conducted in a way that allows both parties to be able to keep growing, because, as we said, it's the key word you correctly said is cooperation here. So, the discussion has been ongoing and will be ongoing to find the proper balanced mechanism there, the principle of fairness between the parties at play, to find ways for both the demand to be further developed from an upstream standpoint, and also, of course, to make sure that the downstream sector is properly incentivized and supported by the policies in order for them to keep growing. The fertilizer industries, the power industries are crucial for the demand to grow in order to sustain the 12 BCF day target that the government has. So it's not an easy way forward, but I'm sure that going ahead in the way we have been doing, cooperating between industry players, cooperating with the government entities, the target can be achieved. Of course, we have the balance between what is the domestic needs and the domestic price needs, and what is also the balance of the opportunity of having export opportunities. Most of the gas projects may have better economics, stronger economics, if they can rely upon to having export opportunities for the gas in order to have also prices that are in line with the international market. So another key element of discussion with the government is certainly that the upstreamers would like to have a proper balance there between what is the domestic demand need and what is the opportunity for export in order to catch the proper prices there. The infrastructures, gas infrastructures, the development of gas infrastructures that connect the resources that are mostly in eastern Indonesia, as we said, to the domestic demand center is crucial. Having them timely developed is a key element of success for the projects to be developed timely. We can't develop the project in the upstream if there is no demand that can be easily reachable. So it's crucial to have the proper infrastructures in place. And I think the government has been having a big effort in this direction, and of course, it will be crucial in the years to come to keep going in that direction in order to make sure that the demand can be timely available for the projects to be properly developed. And of course, we mentioned today and yesterday, Pak Tutuka today described the ongoing effort by the government to establish the proper policies for the CCS and CCUS projects. That's another key element of success for the natural gas to be further pushed and sustained in order to become and continue to be the key transitional fuel in this energy transition phase. That's it for my side. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Pak Diego. I think you mentioned, you discussed there around pricing, and I think we definitely want to get into that. I know that it's a key topic that the industry is looking for solutions on. But before we dive into that meaty subject, maybe I could ask you, thinking about oil projects versus gas projects. Gas projects typically more complex. You've got not only to discover the resource, but you also have to make the investments in the infrastructure to link that resource to demand. You need to then sign up long-term agreements to support the development of that infrastructure. Where are the biggest challenges in some of those elements for upstream players in Indonesia? Where do you see the biggest sort of difficulties or the priority areas that need to be focused on?
I would say the key words are here: policies, long-term view, and infrastructures. Policies means, you mentioned the price. Of course, we're going to talk about price later, but price comes with, is associated with costs and makes it economics, right? Oil projects are probably easier not to be executed, but to be conceived, because you get less upfront work from a commercial standpoint, from a negotiation standpoint. Gas projects need to have a number of elements in place beforehand. And that's where all the players of the industry are actually currently working with the government in order to make them work. You correctly said it's more complex in the way that we need to have the infrastructures in place, right? You need to have long-term contracts or view of what would be the pricing environment you are in. And you need to have certainty regarding your capex. That is common also for oil. But of course, at the end of the day, it comes into what is the return that investors are looking at, right? And of course, having the dialogue with the policy makers and the government in each country in the world is crucial to make sure that once you sanction a project, you have a sound project that is providing the reasonable return for the investors in order for the project to be sanctioned. Even more nowadays where there is a strong competition of capital allocation, especially in the energy transition environment.
Absolutely. Thanks for that. Now, I think we're going to move into the we're going to have 20 minutes or so of discussion. And I've got a couple of sort of topics I want to sort of try and touch upon. Maybe we just start with that sort of pricing side of things. And I might start with our colleagues on the buying side. And given where urea and ammonia prices are just now, they're pretty high levels. Is that something that will enable the buyers to be able to pay higher prices to their upstream players? Like, am I starting in a tricky subject here straight off? Maybe for Pak Jamsaton first. in terms of pricing, what sort of level of pricing could buyers support given where ammonia and urea prices are just now?
Yeah, thank you, Andrew. Yeah, right now we say thank you to government, to Pak Beni, to support the fertilizer, yeah, because based on the equipment, we have the price. Gas price is around $6 US per mm. So this is the economic price to produce the fertilizer. Yeah. Maybe for ammonia we can, because there's some ammonia we export, so this is the base on commercial price, but not more from $9 US per mm.
Okay.
Thank you, Andrew.
Okay. Maybe asking you, Mark, you know, Malaysia has an element of sort of price regulation in place. How has it managed to incentivize investment in new supply and really optimize its domestic gas industry? Is there lessons to be learned?
Yeah, I think I think the price topic is a really important one, as everybody's highlighted and Diego brought up. You know, investors look for a return. We all know that, right? And I mean, that's just the way investment works. That's the way capital allocation works. For global companies such as ours, we flow capital to where we can get the highest return with the most certainty. That's just the way it is. You know, in Malaysia, the experience of creating a balance between what's a fair and reasonable price to allow development and attract investment to occur relative to what's a fair and reasonable price to support the development of local economies, local businesses, and the population is always an interesting balance. I spoke about earlier the focus within Petronas, that no matter what, the entire focus of any development program or the organization has to always be on being more efficient. Because in doing so, in driving down cost of supply, in driving operating efficiency, and fully integrating the components of sustainability that I talked about, it allows more flexibility in that balance. Right? It always allows more flexibility in that balance. The danger, I would say, and this is a personal opinion, that if prices are set too high, it disincentivizes the producer to actually innovate and be creative and drive down costs. Right? If prices are too low, or the set price is too low, it creates the flow of capital to other jurisdictions. And so, you know, the way we look at it is, you know, that the most important thing in setting investment criteria, especially in terms of long-term planning and long-term positioning, is certainty. You know? And having prices move up and down and all over the place, or fiscal regimes changing on a constant basis, creates the absolute level of uncertainty that will drive foreign investment away. So create that balance, be very clear on what it is, ensure that it is relatively sustained for the benefit of all, and industry and producers and investors will find a way to adapt to that. That's the best way I could characterize that.
Thanks for that. I'm going to come back to you, Diego, in terms of, like, from the IPA's perspective, what is that alternative mechanism that allows the upstream producers to be able to continue to invest in new supply, but also can continue to stimulate demand and long-term demand?
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. As I was mentioning before, price is just one of the elements of the complex mechanism of understanding what we need as an industry to actually be able to sanction new projects and keep investing. The discussions of IPA associate members with the government it's been ongoing, where the price is just one of the elements, as I was mentioning, right? At the end of the day, it's a matter of getting the sustainable rate of return with a certainty regarding long-term view that allows a project to be sanctioned. So where the price cannot be simply said, the price is X for anything, right? It doesn't work like this because if you look at the panorama, the portfolio projects that the IPA associates members have, it's totally different. So some projects may need a price to be sustainable, some projects may need other incentives that are on top of the prices or alternative to price increase to be sustainable in the same way. Because at the end of the day, the key word I was using yesterday during my speech as ENI, Indonesia Managing Director, was flexibility, right? The flexibility comes where you sit down with the stakeholders, being the government, being the potential customers, and find a way to make it work for both parties, for all the parties involved. Can be an incentive scheme, can be a guarantee of a part of the volume that can go to export rather than 100% dedicated to domestic. There are a lot of flexible elements that can be played and triggered in order for the project to be sanctioned. If the parties are willing to find a mechanism, that's when you sit down with a commitment to actually be able to sanction a project. And that's what, as IPA, we see as crucial. Continuing finding ways to enable the projects, each project with its peculiarities, to be sanctioned. Price is one of the elements of the equation.
So it comes to flexibility, but also being aware of the relative competitiveness of a particular project amongst a portfolio. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, perhaps moving away from price now, thinking about, going back to perhaps PLN and thinking about, the desire to bring more renewable capacity into your sort of portfolio. Around the world, we've seen the challenges associated with how quickly renewable capacity can be built up. Technology, storage, all these things need to fall into place. And we've seen examples, whether it's in Australia, whether it's in Europe, of where moving too quickly can actually lead to a challenge in terms of providing that affordable and regular supply of energy. For PLN in Indonesia, if renewable power doesn't move as quickly as we would like it to, what is the natural fallback option? Where does gas feature in that sort of plan B scenario, I guess?
Yeah, thank you. I think this is a hot discussion in every part of the world. As you said that some of the European country has shifting to the renewables, but still they need imports or they need a backup from the fossil fuel. Even though that the power plant is not in their country, but still they imported the electricity which generated from the fossil fuel power plant. So for PLN, yes, it is true this is a challenge. In RUPTL, our planning document, 10 years span planning document, we have already drawn a retirement plan of the CFPP. But even though that we have already draw these pictures, but again, this is still a challenge for us. In the RUPTL year 2021, there is no new CFPP development. So what we have right now is on the operation stage and under construction stage. So, fortunately, that in the current situations, our reserve margin is still high. So maybe in Java we have next years we have maybe around 30% to 40% reserve margin. But I'm expecting in the 2026 or 2027, then as I already conveyed previously, we need in Java itself we need at least 1.5 gigawatt per year. So yeah, as you said, this is a very challenging for PLN. We know in Java there is no let's say sufficient land to develop this solar panel. It require a huge land, and also considering that the intensity of the solar itself. Meanwhile, in our case in Indonesia, we are strong in hydro and geothermal. But again, in Java itself, hydro still limited resource, as well as geothermal. We have a geothermal, but again, to meet the growing demand as big as 1.5 gigawatt per year is very, very challenging to meet by these renewables. So what we have right now, we try to draw our transitions period utilizing this gas power plant. We have maybe total around 10 gigawatt capacity and maybe more in Java for the gas, and we already established the gas infrastructures. We have several gas pipelines connects the power plants and also the gas resource in Sumatra and Java, and we have FSRU in the western part of Java. So beside the gas, we also draw pictures to utilize our existing capacity on the coal-fired power plant by co-firing, utilizing ammonia and also hydrogen. So that's in our view. But yes, most probably because there is no development of CFVP in the future, so we will on the standby mode. Gas is always available, and considering gas reserve is still abundant in Indonesia, and also another considerations that at the moment the growth of the electricity is quite interesting. In 2022, this year's in semester 1, our electricity growth could reach 8%. So it's also helped the productions of the upstream gas. So the utilization of the gas not only help PLN, but also help the upstream gas industry to make, as Diego said, certainty on the gas demand, certainty on the pricings, and so on and so on. Thank you.
So gas has a big role to play, and potentially there's upside there as well if you know, renewables don't move as fast as we would all like them to. Fantastic. Maybe moving to you, Pak Benny, in terms of being able to supply that gas and that potential upside, you know, where do you think, I guess two questions, where do you think the industry should be focusing, like from a geographical perspective within Indonesia? Where do you see the biggest potential? But also, you know, how can SKK Migas and the other authorities in Indonesia, how can they sort of collaborate closer to ensure that gas can A, be discovered, and B, be developed?
Thank you, Andre. I think let me begin with the supply side first. I think from the supply side, clearly, you know, we are facing clearly different challenge now in the energy transition era. So I think from the government point of view, we need to simple improvement is simply not enough. We need to have a radical improvement in terms of term and condition, because, you know, clock running fast during the energy transition era. So we are in the position, if we are, I mentioned in my presentation, we have many, you know, potential, we have resources, but, you know, it will be down there forever if not supported by the good term and condition. Is not competitive enough compared to especially our neighboring countries. So the significant improvement is mandatory in order to you know, to support the supply in the future. That's from the supply side. Of course, for demand side, in order to absorb additional supply, mentioned already by many colleagues, you know, the infrastructure, the massive infrastructure need to be developed, of course. and then from the homework from fertilizer company regarding the downstream policy for fertilizer and petrochemical industry, and then conversion mentioned already by Pak Nando also for PLN in order to absorb more supply gas in the future. And then, of course, the refinery, the plan for RDMP, Refinery Development Master Plan, also need to be, encouraged soon. And also other program like a city gas and then BBG or fuel gas, need to be encouraged in order to, again, absorb the additional supply gas in the future. That's it, Andrew.
Great. Thanks very much. I think we'll try and take some questions now that have come in from the audience and from online. We're going to stick with you, Pak Benny, for the first question. The first question has come in. What's the status of discussions between SKK Migas and the question has disappeared. Between SKK Migas and some of its other ministries in terms of helping to match those supply targets with demand? How does SKK Migas sort of work with its colleagues to make that happen?
Yeah, okay. SKK Migas now currently, of course, with the Directorate General Migas, we are closely, discuss with other under the guidance, of course, by the coordinating Ministry of Economic and also coordinating Ministry of Maritime Affairs and Investment. We discuss closely with, of course, the Finance Minister, especially regarding some incentive that need to be issued very soon, because it will impact. It has a significant impact to the economic, such as the indirect taxes, etc. Now the discussion ongoing. We are getting closer. Hopefully, before the end of this year, that kind of incentive improvement can be obtained before the end of this year.
Great answer. The next question, this one is for Mark. What were the main challenges that Petronas saw in implementing regulated gas prices in Malaysia, which led to the reformation of the gas market in 2016? You can recall back that far.
It's a great question, and I'll reiterate a few of the points that I made earlier. I think the one thing I would start with is recognizing that what price works in one region may not work in another, because it's all based on the cost of development and the cost of supply in that basin, in that region. So if we think of the balance in creating prices as creating a favorable investment in climate for capital to flow in to develop that resource or that infrastructure, as we've talked about today in the case of Indonesian gas, then it has to start with a fundamental understanding of the cost of supply or the cost of development of that resource in the project and what's expected for a fair and reasonable return. The second balance, of course, is understanding how to support economic development in the nation and how to avoid energy prices or fuel prices that become too high to support that development on the other side. I think that's why there's a lot of really smart PhD economists around to try and understand how do you create that fair and reasonable balance between what it costs to develop those resources, what it costs to supply energy, what's the cost of domestic supply versus imports. Indonesia is, as I briefly highlighted, very, very fortunate in that the natural resources, the natural gas that exists in the country is significant and world-class, in our opinion. Does it require infrastructure? Does it require investment to allow that to more efficiently and more effectively flow to market, however we define market? Absolutely it does. So the first thing and ultimate requirement is the price has to be set, and this is a lesson in Malaysia, so as to allow investment to occur in a manner that brings forward the energy you need for the development. If it's set too low, it doesn't work. If it's set too high, as I said, then the unintended consequence is you actually create lazy companies, and that's not good for anybody on the supply side.
Thanks for that, Mark. I'm going to stick with you for the next question as well. A question has come in around how are current gas and LNG prices potentially threatening the role of gas as an energy transition fuel? Are we seeing an impact on demand in Asia as a result of where prices are at the moment?
Yeah, as I talked about earlier, we're seeing, I would call it exceptionally high energy prices around the world. I'm old. I've been doing this for almost 34 years, and the prices that we're seeing now globally, Southeast Asia and globally, are exceptionally high. What happens when you see exceptionally high prices? Well, you see demand destruction. The challenge we're seeing right now is that demand destruction is also occurring at a residential level and is impacting individual people. So it's not only industry, it's not only economic growth, it's also individual people, which is creating this discussion around energy security and how do we develop. So we're actually seeing a push of capital towards fossil fuel development again. And frankly, in many jurisdictions towards coal switching back to coal. I think that the key message that that we continue to resonate and ensure occurs within our company is that we have to ensure that any future development, natural gas development especially, adheres to the expectations around the globe for emissions reduction, lower energy intensity, and lower emissions intensity. Because if we don't do that, ultimately I think we'll all pay the price because we'll come out of these exceptionally high prices unable to compete in what the globe expects of us in terms of energy supply, or in terms of emissions intensity. And so, as I said, I think there's very, very significant demand. The growth and requirement in that demand, we think, is actually offsetting the destruction we're seeing from those high prices. It's pushing investment into the space, counter to what the energy transition narrative is. But I think it's very, very important and very focused to ensure that the development that we're seeing and we're focused on is done in a way that is no different than the way we looked at it before this conversation.
So again, it comes back to sort of staying the course and remaining consistent and continuing to invest in natural gas and new sources of supply.
Yeah, it absolutely does. And as Diego talked about, it's a long-term view. Right? It's that stability, take the long-term view, stay with the path, believe that that's the way to go, and I think that's the best way for us. It is the best way for us.
Now I'm going to move back to Pak Nabamban. A question around, you mentioned the need for CCS as part of that blue ammonia strategy. Does that mean that you perhaps would look to get involved in some of those CCS projects? Would you take equity stakes, or how would that impact how you perhaps look at CCS as part of your business going forward?
Yes, absolutely. We need to access the CCS technology. So why right now we have to collaborate with collaboration. One collaboration with the Impacts in Masela. So right now we study together how to transport the CO2 from our plant to inject to reservoir of Masela. And the second project in Aceh, we collaborate with Pertamina because in Aceh so many mature reservoir, so we want to use this. Right now, this is the small scale, just pilot project. If success, we can make the full project. Yeah, ammonia for future, special for blue and green. This is the attractive business for future, yeah? Because the trend right now is already grow up. Demand for ammonia, blue ammonia, and also the green. So maybe some of our product export, if PLN need to change the coal to ammonia, we can ready also. Thank you, Ray.
Thank you. Now a question around. I think this is maybe one for for Pak Benny, and then maybe we'll get Diego's thoughts on it as well. I'd be interested to hear. Related around the sort of delay to IDD and how that could impact the sort of future outlook for the Bontang LNG plant. What's the sort of government strategy or SKK Migas's sort of plans to try and manage that delay and manage the, ensure the continuity of supply to the Bontang plant?
Okay, yes, for the region 5, IDD is very important. So as soon as the divestment process from Chevron settled, I think we will sit together to discuss the POD revision for IDD. But at the same time, beside the IDD, there are several projects under R2P resource to production layer that need to be accelerated as well in order to anticipate that issues. There are projects from ENI, West Ghana, and also some other projects. From exploration side, there are discovery also from Pertamina Hulu Indonesia Group that also will help, to support the supply in Region 5. But I think we hope that main contributor later coming from the giant discovery from ENI Group later. I think Pak Diego can elaborate more on that, Pak.
Thanks for the question. And I would say Bontang is a part of East Kalimantan system. As Pak Benny was saying, there are lots of players there in the area. And what I think it's important, and in the last 3 years of my tenure here, I've experienced it, and I really appreciate the cooperation among the parties in the East Kalimantan system together with the SKK Migas. The business continuity there is crucial for both Bontang energy plant and for the important local customers there. So it's not one single project that makes the business continuity. It is the combination of the exploration success and the time to market for the developments, as well as the timely development of these projects in order for the production in the area to be always available for A, the local customers, and B, Bontang. And of course, the discussion has been ongoing with SKK Migas. As ENI is concerned, we have a few projects. I mentioned yesterday, Merake System Maha are the first ones in our pipelines. Pertamina is having new discoveries, and we all hope that there will be a number of future developments that will keep the production up in the area. What is important there is the cooperation among the parties, the dialogue, and not only among producers, but with the government and with PT Badak operator there. Because the whole system is connected to each other. All the elements, all the pieces of the system that are connected to each other, and only through a cooperation, through a proper planning, the continuity of the activities can be ensured.
Thanks very much. I think we've got time perhaps for one last question, and then we'll perhaps wrap up. We've been going for 2 hours or so I'm aware people might be needing to stand up and go for a walk around. But the final question is around considering growing demand of natural gas and LNG around the world, how is the government of Indonesia keeping the balance between gas exports and domestic consumption and demand? Maybe this is someone that a few of us would like to chip in on, but maybe I'll start with you, Pak Benny.
Okay, thank you, Andrew. I think the question also from Andrew. Okay, I think the priority is still for domestic. On top of the domestic, of course, we can export. That's the simple thinking. Again, I think the issue about price have been discussed before. The simple message is, again, the priority is still for the domestic consumption, and then on top of that, of course, we can export.
Diego, is that something you want to chip in on? How do you think the government, or how does the IPA think the government can support that balance between exports and domestic use?
As I mentioned before, it is a matter of having a long-term view, right? To sanction projects, you need to understand where the revenues are going to come from. The price is one of the elements, that comes with the allocation of the volumes. Certainty over the allocation of the volumes, certainty over the destination of the volumes is crucial for the projects to be sanctioned. And it is a discussion that is ongoing with the government in each project that the upstreamers are working on. As Babeni was saying, it is crucial, and it's a fact, the priority has to go to the local consumption. But of course, having clarity on how much gas can actually go to export down the road is another key element, because that will be priced in your economics while sanctioning a project. So it's not a matter of having X% export, Y% import or local demand. It's to know it up front, to have a clear view regarding the price environment the project should be, expecting to have revenues from. And that is, again, long-term view, as we mentioned before.
Thanks so much, Diego. Right, perhaps to finish off this discussion, maybe we can just go around the panel, and in one sort of sentence, perhaps you can give us your number one reason why natural gas will be Indonesia's transition fuel. And I'm going to start at the end, Diego. Give you the least amount of time to think about it, just because it's your last the last question you may be asked here.
Availability of resources, keyword. As I was mentioning, availability of resources is the key point. The country has lots of resources. The key point is how to make them actually be available to the market.
Excellent. Mark?
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. I would reinforce what I've said before. Natural gas has shown that it can improve in major step changes in terms of its emissions intensity and energy intensity. Many regions around the globe have seen upwards of 50% reduction over the last 10 years. And I think it sets it up very, very well in Indonesia for long-term sustained future as a fuel of choice, quite frankly.
Excellent. Pak Namaman?
Natural gas is very important for fertilizer. Yeah. Fertilizer and ammonia, because 85% the raw material is come from natural gas. So it's very important natural gas for us. Thank you, Andrew.
Absolutely. Pak Nando?
Yeah, I think the development of the renewables, large scales in Java is still facing several challenges. So that's why I think the gas is the best options to meet the growing demand.
To help us transition, yeah.
Thank you, Andre. The issue of achieving 12 BCF per day in 2030, again, as I mentioned, it's not about availability, it's about deliverability. And then for us, let's support, so that we can deliver the gas by providing the fiscal and non-fiscal incentive. Thank you.
Great. Well, there you have it. Natural gas very much seen as the transition fuel for Indonesia. Indonesia has the resources, it has the demand, there's continued investment in infrastructure. The policy is moving in the right direction to support the development of new sources of supply. And in terms of meeting Indonesia's future energy needs, affordability, security of supply, and decarbonisation, natural gas has to be the focus going forward. So I'd like to thank everyone on the panel. I'd like to thank IPA for inviting me and the panel to be part of this discussion. And we'll conclude this plenary session now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. A round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. And we will now have a presentation of mementos as our token of appreciation to all our distinguished panelists in this session and to the moderator. Bapak Wahyu Budiarto, IPA Board, will present the mementos, our gratitude and appreciation for the valuable discussion. Thank you very much, Bapak Kevin Moore. we would like to express our thanks and appreciation to the valuable discussion during this session. Thank you very much. And a big round of applause once again, ladies and gentlemen, to all our panelists and moderator. Thank you very much. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, this plenary session 3 is now concluded, and our program right after this will be the special talk. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a very short break before we proceed to the special talk. Approximately 15 minutes. Tea, coffee, and snacks are available to your choice. Please proceed to the buffet in this plenary hall, where tea, coffee, and snacks are already served. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Humans need energy to move, to grow, and to evolve. We believe the energy that drives the transformation is positive energy. And positive energy comes from a reliable source. Pertamina has distributed energy that drives and empowers Indonesia. We are committed to continue to providing and supplying energy from its source to the nation's remote areas and the world. For 6 decades, Pertamina has evolved and is continuing to grow with Indonesia, innovating relentlessly in producing energy with the spirit of continuous transformation into a world-class national company. Since June of 2020, Pertamina has transformed into Oil and Gas Holdings state-owned enterprise. With 6 sub-holdings, Pertamina holds a strategic part of maintaining the national energy resilience. And we are Pertamina Hulu Energy, the sub-holding upstream that performs the Pertamina's upstream management. In the sub-holding upstream, not only do we produce oil and gas energy, we also continue to innovate, to discover new oil and gas reserves, to explore new fields, exploits, and produce oil and gas from all of our working areas. Not only expanding from the northern part of Sumatra to Papua, but also internationally, divided into 5 regions, 2 service companies, and the largest LNG company in Indonesia. We maintain the energy source to keep streaming to attain the national energy resilience. El-Nusa and PDSI, as the upstream services companies, contributes and synergizes harmoniously with all Pertamina's subholding upstream regions. Badak NGL, as the largest LNG company in Indonesia, strengthens the existence of Pertamina's subholding upstream. To embody Pertamina's aspiration to be the leading global energy company, in accomplishing the vision, mission, and aspirations of Pertamina, we implement Akhlaq values in line with every operation and business activity. We believe the culture of Akhlaq values shape our employees to excel, to be professionals, reliable, and experts in their fields that support a continuous business growth. In the subholding upstream, we believe that creativity and innovation are keys to keep growing, to initiate solutions and added value for the company through synergy to achieve common goals and the operational excellence. We believe by working safely, creating a healthy, safe, and friendly working environment are the main keys, because we care for the health, the work safety and security of every employee as our main priority and commitment. We uphold this commitment without tolerance. Zero work accidents in our entire operation activity is a must. In subholding upstream, we believe that a strong HSSE performance and culture will accelerate continuous business growth and benefit for all employees and stakeholders, as well as to live harmoniously and balanced with the environment surrounding our operational area. We are always committed to protect the environment's sustainability by managing the utilization of energy and other resources to minimize the environmental impact, as well as to preserve the ecosystem and biodiversity in every business and operation activity. In subholding upstream, supporting business sustainability, we provide the best contribution to the community through the implementation of corporate social responsibility programs, empowering communities to live healthy, intelligent, and independent lives, as well as preserving sustainable green environments to create prosperous communities with our CSR and environmental development programs. Our programs support the Sustainable Development Goals in a form of environmental, social, and governance, or ESG-based program implementation. We believe with continuous development of corporate social responsibility and environmental programs, we will provide positive energy for the community. The positive energy that drives Indonesia towards a better future comes from the best source. We are a part of the energy source because we are the upstream energy. We are subholding upstream. Pertamina Hulu Energy.